Well, good morning, explorers, and welcome back to the Exploring Your Universe radio show. Exploring Your Universe is UCLA's biggest science fair. Every year, we get at least 12,000 visitors to come look at all the great science done by UCLA undergraduate students, graduate students, everybody else who works here, and some really cool community members who we love seeing around. So you're here with DJ Stellar Cloud, she, her, and...
I'm DJ Emers, they, them.
Woo! Welcome, DJ Emers. So DJ Emers, or Emerson Whittaker, is, first of all, like my best friend. I've said this about several guests, but I really mean it about this one. So Emerson and I are assigned best friends because we are in the same lab group in the Earth, Planetary, and Space Sciences department, where they recently became a PhD candidate, which is a huge deal if you know anything about being a PhD candidate, and they study asteroids. So, is there anything else you think I should introduce about you before we get started?
I used to have a radio show, so I used to know how this works.
That's right. So Emerson went to UMD, which is the University of Maryland. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh
College
my gosh.
Park. Go Terps.
Go what?
Go Terps. Terrapins.
Terps. I thought you said turfs, and I was
No.
gonna be so confused.
That'd be bad.
That would be bad. Okay. Anyway, so Emerson used to run their own radio show called Radio Astronomy, which is really funny because right now I'm a radio astronomer.
Oh, yeah. You're doing more of the actual thing. We just played songs that talked about space.
That's fair. We will play some songs that talk about space later today, but first, we got to get down to business. Let's talk about Exploring Your Universe. So Emerson has been a loyal volunteer for at least 3 years, but possibly 4.
I mean, I've only been here. How many times have we even done it? Like 3 times,
Okay, well,
I think.
I've done it 3 times, and you're 1 year
Okay.
older than I am.
Oh.
So, did you do it your first year?
I don't remember. I think maybe I did 2. Okay, I did one where I was working on the telescopes, and then I
Yeah.
did one where I was doing like Venus
Okay, with
atmospheric
Helen.
stuff, and then I did one where we were making little puffer fish with
Okay.
a chemical reaction. So I think maybe 3 years, unless I did 2 separate years of telescope stuff.
Yeah, so would you believe that you are our first, like, volunteer type guest? Everybody else so far has either been, like, a booth leader or, like, a board member. So we are going to hear about the volunteer experience and what that's like and why you should also volunteer for Exploring Your Universe. So your first year, you were part of the nighttime telescope team, and what was that like? What happens there?
So that was pretty cool. That one, so it actually starts during the daytime because they have a couple solar telescopes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so you're constantly having to readjust these little telescopes to be pointed at the sun, and then you they have this filter that only lets in like 1/10,000th of the light or something, so that you don't
Yeah.
burn your eyes looking at the sun.
Yeah, don't look directly at the sun.
Yeah, don't do that. Please don't. Not without the proper glasses and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's very fun showing people the sun, and they're always like, "Whoa, look at that."
Can you see sunspots?
It depends if you're near solar minimum or not. I
Okay,
think
okay.
right now, if you look at the sun, you'll see sunspots. But like 5 or 6 years ago, you wouldn't have because it was solar minimum.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I haven't invited him on yet, but I'm sure someday he'll come on. There is a scientist in our department, Abraham Amiri. Shout out to Abe if he's listening. He's a big sun guy, and every Wednesday in the Court of Sciences, he hosts a small version of the EYU solar telescopes called Solar Wednesdays, where you can look at the sun. So if you want to see a sunspot, Wednesday, 12 to 2, Court of Sciences. Okay, so after you did the telescope thing, so after daytime telescope, it became nighttime telescope. Did you stick around for that?
Yes. So that one, then I was working with I think 4-inch telescope looking at the moon. So that was cool.
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of expected everyone was going to gravitate towards the bigger telescopes looking at
Yeah.
like Jupiter and Saturn, and they'd be like, the moon, I've seen it, but actually,
Okay, but have you seen the moon?
and I think that was the thing, is that looking
Yeah.
at it in like higher definition where you can really see all the lunar mare and you can see the craters and people are going, what's that? What's
What
that?
is lunar mare?
Okay, so that, if you look at the moon, you'll see kind of there's brighter parts and there's darker parts.
Yeah.
And so the darker parts are the lunar mare. So
Okay,
I think
okay.
the idea there is during kind of the early phases of the moon when it was still like forming and still hot,
Mm-hmm.
that had these like vast oceans of lava that basically solidified. So that those are darker colored rocks.
Oh.
They're basalt, and the other ones are a lighter colored rock that I'm blanking on. But
Okay.
anyway, so it's geology stuff.
Yeah, the geology stuff. It's like granite or something.
I remember. Plagioclase feldspar.
Oh, okay. How did you remember that? Can we just...
I don't know.
What the heck? Okay. Yeah. I'm shook. Okay, sorry. This is an anti-jargon show.
Sorry.
So it's really good that you remember the name of the rock. But yeah, stuff like Lunar Mare, we're going to break all that down for you. Okay. So the year after when I moved up to booth coordinator, I know I moved you to Helen's booth, Venus.
Yeah.
Okay, what happens at Helen's Venus booth? We try to have Helen on the show too. Helen, if you're listening, I still really want you on the show. Okay, what happens at Helen's booth?
So that one was fun. That one, it is this little experiment to demonstrate how convection happens in Venus's atmosphere.
Okay.
So you take some water and you put some red food coloring and some blue food coloring.
That's what they're doing there.
And I think then it's in this big box, and I think what it was we heated the bottom of the box or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that it creates this temperature gradient where it's hotter on one side and colder near to the other side, and then it creates these little convection currents. And so then you could use that to explain this is kind of like what's happening on Venus.
Yeah, so that's why Venus has the pretty swirly patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen iCarly?
Yes.
Okay, there's an episode where Spencer is dating this woman and they're both like painting each other as part of an art demonstration. And then so she paints his lips blue and he paints her lips red. And then they're like, let's make purple. Like that's what this experiment is. It's like the red and the blue combining together. Sorry, that was really dumb.
Yeah, a little bit less Nickelodeon flavored, but yeah.
Yeah. Everything that happens at EYU is completely family friendly. Just for the record.
Yeah,
bring your
very
kids.
friendly.
Yes. Everybody from 0 to 100. I think that's what we advertise too.
And the thing I learned at that booth especially was that nothing teaches you what you don't know, like trying to teach something, because people had really good questions about the specifics of what's going on Venus. And honestly, I had to be Googling things in between trying to explain things. And you kind of by the end of the day, then you know exactly what's going on. But there's definitely, Venus is an interesting place, and people were very interested in it when they had something to kind of visualize what's happening.
I feel like that's part of it. A lot of our volunteers text in and they're like, I really want to volunteer, but I'm not a science major. I've never taken a science class before. How would I possibly be useful at the booth? But aside from just Googling stuff, just having you there and also being interested in the booth is more than enough for the kids to have a great experience visiting your booth. So I think it's fine that you didn't know everything about Venus. I don't know anything about Venus.
I know it's real hot and it's got a real thick atmosphere, and that's most of it.
Your voice is so comforting over the air. I know I hear you all the time, but this is very pleasant.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay. The other fun fact about Helen's booth is that it's one of the only booths that requires a fire extinguisher. We trust Helen with a heating element, so she gets one, but then she also gets a fire extinguisher. So my job is a lot of the safety stuff, and so I did run around with the fire extinguishers this past year. I remember giving one to her. She's thank goodness this is here. You have no idea how hot it gets.
Oh, no.
I know, but the booth has had no accidents. EYU has had no major accidents since 2022, so.
Well, that's good. That's that little counter they have in, what is it called? The Monsters, Inc.
Yeah. Well, what happened in 2022 is that some kids got in a fight with each other.
Oh, no.
And one of them pushed the other one down the stairs. But, that wasn't our fault. It just, it sort of happened on our watch. And after that, I was like, we need an EMT. We need emergency services on here. So starting in 2023, we at least had the threat of the EMT there.
That's good. I mean, with that many people, you put enough people together in one place all at one time.
Yeah.
And every concert that's big enough, they have,
That's true.
An entire EMT team there just in case.
But we didn't know because we're all graduate students.
Right.
And
yeah.
Also, 2022 was the first year that we came back after the online COVID one.
Oh, right.
And so we didn't even know how many people were going to show up. And then so it was all this mass chaos, and it was huge. Yeah, which was great. And we've learned so much from that. But yeah, 2022, rough time because we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this year, you joined the Pufferfish booth hosted by Jay Chu.
Yes.
What is the name of the Pufferfish booth? I forgot. Oh, chemical reactions?
Yes.
Yes, chemical reactions. Okay, what happens at chemical reactions?
Well, you're never going to believe this, but a chemical reaction happens.
Gosh, really?
So basically, you take a balloon. Well, you take we cut the little fingers off of gloves so that you can make a little tiny balloon.
Yeah.
And then inside that you put water, and then you tie it up and you put the little water pouch inside of a normal size balloon.
Okay.
And then in the normal size balloon, you put an acid and a base. I think it was baking soda and citric acid.
I believe so, because I purchased all the items, and I remember purchasing these 2 items.
Okay. And so then you tie that off and you let them draw a little face or whatever they want on the balloon, and then you tell them to smash it. And so then when to punch it, and then that'll break the little balloon inside with water so that the acid and the base mix. And then that creates a chemical reaction that creates some gas, I forget which one, that fills the balloon up a little bit. So it's like a pufferfish.
I'd imagine it tastes good.
Well, I'm sure it tastes like, baking soda and water and citric acid.
But, like, I would eat that.
I think it would, at the end of the experiment, theoretically, it would just taste like water, right? Because you mix.
That's right.
I don't really know.
I don't know.
Let's not try it. That's the other safety thing was I was, like, glad that there was water bottles around, because there was one girl who got either the citric acid or the baking soda in her eye, and then I had to do the little makeshift, eye squirt thing. What do they call those machines in the chemistry labs?
Oh,
basically that with a water bottle.
Well, eye flush.
Eye flush, yeah.
Just so you know, if this happens to you again, you should just come to the info booth. I'll probably be there, and then I'll bring the EMT over.
Oh, it wasn't, like, bad enough to need an EMT, but it was bad enough to be like, oh, yeah, we should probably tell people not to touch their eyes and have water around.
Yeah, that's really funny. Okay, so other than don't touch your eye after touching citric acid, what is something that you hope these kids are learning from any of your EYU experiences?
I guess I hope that they're learning that science is, the rules of the universe that control how everything works. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you combine them in particular ways, you can get really interesting, cool stuff happen.
Yeah.
And so I guess I hope that that's what we're articulating, because I know sometimes in my own life, like when I was younger and I'd go to these science fair things, it'd be like, oh, okay, the fancy scientists do magic, and then I go home. So I guess I want to convey that it's like, this is just like a very particular kind of special version of how everything else works too. Like the same laws that make this little pufferfish are also the things that make trees grow and that, make balls roll down hills. Like, the physics and the chemistry and the biology is the same across the entire world, but it's just that if you do certain specific things and you kind of can isolate very specific chemicals or very specific things, then you can get really cool results.
Yeah, so I guess like the kids come, they see the fundamentals, and they can start thinking about how these fundamentals really apply to some of the more complicated science things that they might see, or even just their everyday things, which are very complicated science things.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that took the longest for me to click, is it didn't really click with me until college that, like, actually the entire world is so complicated. Like, if you wanted to understand a leaf falls off a tree and where's it going to land, you'd need, like, a supercomputer to do that. I don't know if it's even a solvable problem,
I don't really think it's a solvable problem. I think that's the Navier-Stokes equation.
Yeah, like, it might be one of those where by the time you calculate it, the leaf already landed. So, it's, like, I guess I want to be able to convey that wonder is present even in the everyday stuff.
That's very beautiful. It's our second episode on childlike wonder. So, everybody has said kind of like a different thing, but I think the childlike wonder theme is really sticking around, which is appropriate for a science fair. But that's super cool. Do you remember any, like, instances of getting to see this childlike wonder with any of the kids?
Definitely with the moon. That one sticks out to me, where the kids would be really excited about the moon, and then the parents would also be just as excited about the moon. And they're kind of trying to act like they don't have the childlike joy, which makes it a little bit cuter. But yeah, I think people got really excited about the moon. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like my parents are not going to hide their childlike wonder anymore, because now it's like wonder at what their daughter does at school. But I totally understand the need as a parent to be like, I already knew these things that my kid is learning, but the moon is so beautiful. Like, if you have like a silly $50 telescope or whatever, try to point it at the moon one of these days when there's less light pollution than usual. You will be very shocked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's very beautiful. It is kind of bright though. So like, don't stare at it for too long maybe, but use
appropriate eye protection. Make sure your telescope has the right filters on. And you should try to look at it from slightly further away than put your eye all the way against the glass. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But it's fine. I think for a little bit. Just to look at the moon.
Anyway, what inspires you to volunteer for EYU?
I think just, trying to kind of get out into the community a little bit more and try and like convey the knowledge that we have to the wider community, and try and like influence the younger generations, because I feel like, for however long it continues to be funded by our tax dollars, science is funded by our tax dollars.
That's right.
So
You're more than welcome to talk about this, by the way.
Yeah, so that's a little crazy what's happening right now with the administration. But
it's been hinted at a few times on previous episodes, but I mean, if somebody stepped into our office before, they know that this is all we talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have that problem of liking to complain about politics, but yeah, in terms of like why I want to do these sorts of things, yeah, it's my personal belief that doing science is supposed to be for the community. And so if you're not conveying your results and in kind of helping to teach the community about what you're actually learning when you're doing your science, then you're kind of not doing your whole job. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's like part of it. Now, obviously, we're not teaching them like the most hot off the presses science, findings with this particular fair. But I mean, I think it's also great just to get people excited about science and excited about learning, and to kind of try and teach critical thinking from a young age. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important too.
I mean, I think what's really cool about it is that like they can actually speak to a scientist. I don't know if it's like very clear to anybody listening, but like even getting to speak to a PhD candidate like you about science is often a privilege. And so I think like all the volunteers are like star-studded. Like tons of professors are volunteers. They normally would not spend 8 hours talking to children, but this is like an incredible opportunity for children to come like face-to-face with the people who actually do the science, and they're not learning, like you're saying, like what these people are currently researching, but getting to understand these like deeper truths about fundamental physics and chemistry from these people is just a really great experience.
That's a good point. I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, that's true.
Like, you're very qualified.
I guess. It doesn't feel that way when you're doing grad school, but I guess so.
It never feels that way. They're always like, oh, yeah, when you start grad school, you're going to want to quit like 6 or 7 times. And I didn't believe it when I first started because I was so excited to be here. But now I've kind of wanted to quit like 6 or 7 times. I'm not going to quit, but yeah. I feel like people walk into our office, we're talking about 2 things. Either like we both want to quit, or these are the giant systems in our country that we need to dismantle ASAP.
Yeah, it's my bad.
It's not your bad. It's both of us.
Maybe so. I mean, all that being said, I think grad school is much more tolerable than undergrad.
Oh, 100%.
Undergrad was really like, I came into grad school with the mindset of, okay, I can't do that again. Yeah. So if this becomes that, I will simply give up.
That's fair.
And I think that was a good thing because it made me kind of figure out my boundaries and set up like a schedule for myself.
Yeah.
Early on so that it would be like manageable. But yeah, it is one of these things where if you're expecting someone to hold your hand and teach you what your job is supposed to be, you got another thing coming.
Okay. Well, first of all, not only have you held my hand and told me what my job was, but Akash Gupta, for some reason this guy is listening, he's really too powerful to be listening to the show. But if he's listening, he really held my hand and told me what was going on. And then after he left, Will Meisner did it for me for a few months, and then now you've kind of taken over. So first of all, when you start grad school, try to make friends with the older students there. A lot of them are going to be super down to help you out. So thank you to those 3 people. So I assume nobody's holding your hand at this point because you're like the top of the food chain.
I mean, I guess not. Although, like, I guess Saeed and Kira sort of know things on like the union side. Although I guess now I'm becoming sort of more knowledgeable on some of that. And then I felt like Hannah Tandy was the keeper of the knowledge. So I really don't know what we're going to do now that she's gone.
Yes.
But
yes. Emerson and I are at this weird stage where a lot of the people who were like the parents of our graduate department are gone, and now we're sort of the parents of the graduate department.
Yeah.
But it's big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it happens. The same thing happened to me in high school with orchestra, where there were like all these people that you look up to so much, and then suddenly you're those people, and then everyone's asking you questions.
And you're like, how am I supposed to answer this? I'm just a kid.
Right.
Speaking of just being a kid, any final thoughts on kids at EYU, how we can reach out to our community?
I don't know. Maybe it'd be good for some of these to have like little flyers to hand out explaining how the things work so that they can take it home. And
that's a really good point. I should write this down. It's too early in the morning for me to be writing, but I agree. And what have you gained from EYU personally?
I've gained a better knowledge of Venus and
That's
the
true.
moon.
Yes.
And what was the other one?
Pufferfish.
Chemical reactions. Although I guess I forgot the name of the gas that we were creating. But
It's okay.
and I guess I've learned that children aren't so scary actually. Because I was like the
Were
kind
you
of
scared
person.
of children before this?
Well, okay, I was the kind of person who did an entire class on how to do babysitting because I was scared to do babysitting, and then I
Okay.
still didn't do any babysitting.
Okay, but that's totally normal. Like, being responsible for children is way different than volunteering.
I guess that's true. Yeah, but it's a good like tester to be like, oh, okay, yeah, these little rascals are all right actually.
They're great.
And it was very like I guess I was surprised at how like fulfilling it feels to like teach the younger generation stuff.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the number one reason why somebody should volunteer for EYU? I know you kind of don't have a choice at this point. Granted, my position, but
I mean, I think it's like it's really not if you're intimidated by the like, oh, I don't know enough about whatever, you can honestly just kind of maybe ask ahead of time, what is the experiment or the whatever it is that we're doing, and just kind of learn a little knowledge box around whatever that area is, and then you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And honestly, even if you don't know anything, you'll probably be okay. You can learn as you go.
you're an
And-
adult and you're talking to 5-year-olds.
Yeah. and I guess, what was the question again? Why?
Just like, why should people volunteer for EYU?
I think, yeah, it's like if you want to kind of give back to the community and you want to have an opportunity to talk to some kids about science and teach them some stuff and learn what it is that they're interested in,
Yeah.
then this is a great opportunity to do that.
Well, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. A volunteer of 3 years and going to return for the 4th year this year.
Yes.
It's a great experience and everybody should try it.
Yeah.
So that's going to conclude our little EYU section. When we get back from the break, we'll talk more about DJ Emers' life story. But now we're going to listen to some music. So our first song is...
Moonlight by Kali Uchis.
Cool. When we used to air on the radio, we would listen to some music now. But since you're streaming, for copyright reasons, we will not. But you're welcome to pause here and go listen to some songs. And we're back with DJ Stellar Cloud and DJ Emers on the Exploring Your Universe radio show. You just heard Moonlight by Kali Uchis and Asteroid Day by the Bygones. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I did a good job. So why did you pick these two songs?
So I was doing it in the tradition of the radio show I used to have called Radio Astronomy, where we did not talk about actual radio astronomy at all, but we did play songs that mentioned something about space at least once. So for these ones, This was sort of based on the title being Moonlight, and since we just talked about the moon, that's pretty fitting.
Perfect.
And then Asteroid Day, because my research is about asteroids, and because I literally had just like looked up the word asteroid in Spotify because I was curious if there were songs about asteroids, and then it was this beautiful, lovely song, and I was like, wow.
It was great. It's kind of like everything about you, the folk music, the asteroids, the ad hoc looking things up.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just dropped this very juicy detail that you study asteroids. How did you start studying asteroids, and then sort of walk us through like what you currently do?
Sure. Yeah. So my first time doing research about asteroids was at the Lunar and Planetary Institute when I was 19. So somewhere in the middle of college during one summer, I went down to Houston,
Dang, we're
Texas.
starting them young.
Yep. And there was this internship they do at the Lunar and Planetary Institute where most of the people actually were working on the moon or meteorites or things like that, some sort of planetary science. And my project was with Patrick Taylor and Ed Rivera Valentin, who were researchers at LPI. I think they've both since moved on to other institutions. But
Briefly, can you define planetary science for our audience?
sure. So planetary science is basically the study of anything in the solar system,
Okay.
kind of outside of Earth.
Okay.
So it's kind of like astronomy, but for specifically things in the solar system.
Okay, so asteroids in this case are going to count as planets.
Well, yes. Yeah, asteroids count as planetary science because they're inside the solar system. They're in the asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter.
I'm just
Or
playing
for the
devil's
most part.
advocate. I know the definition of planet is highly contested.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can ask our advisor about that. He has his own ideas, but yeah, so that was my first experience, and I just had a great time at LPI. My, advisors for that project were great and
Yeah.
sort of encouraged me to think of new ideas and stuff, and I that was when I learned that you can study asteroids using a giant radar dish, and you basically go and bounce radar off of the asteroids in the similar way that people will try and look for planes by bouncing radar off of the planes. It's like the same idea, but you can use it to study these asteroids that get close to the Earth.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was the craziest thing ever, and how come we aren't all talking about that?
Okay, so the question that I know everybody wants to ask me all the time, and therefore asks you, is an asteroid going to hit Earth, and what happens if it does?
Okay, so the one that everyone's talking about right now is this 2024 Y something 4. I forget the exact name. But basically, it's about 50 meters across. What is that? That's like, 50 yards. That's like half a football field, right?
Yeah. Thank you for putting it in American units. I actually didn't even understand until you said that.
Yeah, so it's kind of about the same size as the Chelyabinsk one that kind of exploded over Russia, and then part of it landed in a lake. So I think it wouldn't be like so horrible, but it would be like kind of bad if it hit the Earth. And we were worried about that one. I think it went up to about a 3% chance of hitting the Earth. But now that they're getting new data points on it and getting a better orbit for it, it's gone back down to like, I think, less than 1% chance of hitting Earth.
And are the people you're talking about getting these data points using radar or something else?
They're using something else because it's too far away to do radar at this point. They're just using like normal telescope light, basically.
Got it. Okay. And then did you specifically work on radar at LPI?
Yes, at LPI, I was working on a project with radar where I was trying to come up with a new way to find how big these asteroids are.
Yeah.
That is, more complicated than just eyeballing it, but less complicated than doing a shape model that takes months to do.
Yeah.
So we were trying to look for a good middle ground there, and I did a little write-up on it. So that was my experience at LPI. Met some really cool people. Had a good time, and I said, you know what, that's pretty cool. I'll do a little more of this exoplanet stuff, but then maybe I'll do this instead.
Yeah.
And so, now I've done a couple different projects on asteroids here at UCLA.
Nice. And then how did you find the opportunity to do asteroids here? Because asteroids is not like our most populous field.
Yeah, so basically, when I was applying to grad school, I was kind of just looking for who are the professors that are doing research on asteroids or small bodies. I think at the time I was sort of like, asteroids, comets, I'll take either of that.
Yeah.
I was even still applying to some that were just exoplanets.
Okay. For anybody listening, exoplanets is the most competitive field in astronomy right now.
Yeah, it's like as soon as they found a planet outside the solar system, they were like, oh, word, that exists. And then they found thousands more of them. And so, everyone is very excited about all of those. And I did that for a while, but I guess the thing I didn't like about exoplanets is that there's lots of individual planets that they know of now, but there's not that much data on any singular one, and it's such a complicated system of like trying to learn about an entire planet from like a few data points is just kind of
preach.
It's a lot. It's a lot of modeling with not a lot of ability to check whether that model's right or not. So it's a little bit above my pay grade. I'll stick to things that are basically just rocks. But yeah, anyway, what was I saying?
You and I are extremely biased about this exoplanet science thing. So sorry to any exoplanet scientists.
I mean, it was fun. I had a good time. I really enjoyed working with Eliza Kempton's team at University of Maryland. I think they're all really great scientists.
Yeah.
So, it was a good time, but I think that time for me has perhaps passed.
That's fair.
And so, I basically just looked for who was doing asteroid stuff and kind of followed those people, and then also looked at where am I willing to live, Like, I don't think I applied to any schools in, like, Boston.
Okay. But, what's wrong with Boston? I genuinely have no idea.
I just think it's cold, and it sounds like it's very difficult to get around by car, which at the time was a no-go for me because I was, like, scared of, like, I guess I knew how to navigate like metros, but buses I had never figured out how to navigate yet. So I was like, I can't live like this.
I'm going to cut this out before we send it to Carol.
Well, I've since learned how to ride the bus, and I greatly appreciate buses and everything they do.
Okay. Our advisor has introduced us to this one lovely woman named Carol, and she is like Boston's biggest fan and kept saying that the two of us need to like spend a month there together, just like exploring. And so I have heard
positive things about Boston. I'm just sort of like, I think for me, even though I came from a place that gets moderately cold, and I do kind of miss the snow, I don't know if I could do cold and wet all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of like the forever summer thing, even though I miss the seasons a little bit. Maybe I'm a little bit of that, like, seasonal whatever, but yeah.
Okay, so you're from North Carolina.
Yes.
What is North Carolina like? How did you eventually get to LA?
Yeah, so it was a big change because I'm from the Appalachians.
sticks.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm from Boone, North Carolina, which is kind of like Asheville, but even smaller. It's like 20,000 people. And so that's not counting the college students. With the
Okay.
college students, it's like 35,000. So it's a college town, which makes it kind of a mix of like, it's not, there's like the more rural people, but then there's also like sort of the college professory type of people.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a mix. But it was definitely going, I knew I wanted to do astronomy at the time, and I was like, how do you do that? Well, you have to get a physics major, which is what I thought. You could also get an astronomy major, but anyway, so I was
But
like,
honestly, just get a physics major.
yeah, it's more
Yeah.
versatile,
Yeah.
more transferable. So I said, where can I do that? And I kind of narrowed it down to either UNC Chapel Hill, which would have been still in North Carolina,
Yeah.
only like 3 hours away, or University of Maryland, which was like, 7 or 8 hours away. So you
Okay.
could still drive. And it was a better program, not maybe bigger school, more like in R1 versus being more of like, that's like, I don't know what R1 even
Sorry.
stands for, but it's like a research
It's like
institution.
D1 athletics, R1 is the top of the research chain.
Right.
Yes. Don't worry, I've done this on a previous episode.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I literally don't even know what that stands for, but
I don't know if that's what it stands for, but it means the same thing. So yeah.
Basically,
effectively.
it's a better school for doing sciencey, researchy
And
stuff.
you already knew you wanted to do that when you were applying to college.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of between music or science, and I kind of thought I had a better shot with science. And I think I was right because I don't have the same discipline with music, but it was definitely a shift.
Yeah.
University of Maryland is in College Park, which is near Washington, D.C., so it was very urban, lots of people, very, like, competitive. Like, everybody there had taken Calc 1, 2, 3 in high school and had all these opportunities, and it made me feel like a bumpkin. So I had some catching up to do. But I think it pushed me to get a lot better and to learn how to do, teamwork, doing homework in teams, because
Yeah.
otherwise you won't finish the homework,
That's
that kind
correct.
of thing.
But you were extremely
So-
successful there. You were in honors college, and
Yeah, it
you
worked
had the
out.
friends, and you even got to keep the music because you're on Spotify several times.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I played in the cello background from one song that my friends did. But
Yeah, shout out to TMM Music.
Shout out to TMM. Shout out to Matt Graber, who lives out here now, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a great opportunity. Very stressful, but I
Yeah.
learned how to live in the city, and I kind of got used to that. I adopted perhaps slightly more road rage than is reasonable, but I-95 will do that to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But once I'd done that, then moving out to LA, it's a little bit of a change. It's a little bit tough to go like, oh, there's no trees.
But you've
Where-
always lived in a college town.
I guess so, yeah.
That's really funny.
I'm used to the college town thing, and now I'm used to the urban thing.
Yeah.
And so now it's honestly like, I don't really want to go back to living in a small town. Like, I go back
Yeah.
and I'm sort of like, it's really, it's like too easy to drive. It's like, what do you mean I drive there and I park in the parking lot?
There
Where's
aren't
the
people like
challenge?
parked on both sides of the street.
There's not like a truck stopped across the
the
entire
lane
road
is
for some
narrower
reason.
than my car.
Yeah. But so I think, and it's, I love all the people that are there, and I do miss,
Yeah.
especially the seasons and the rhododendrons and kind of the nature side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little small. It's a little slow. I like having lots of different people and lots of stuff to do, especially as
Yeah.
like kind of a young adult.
Yeah.
So I think I made the right choice.
Do you think that like if you had moved back, is LGBT acceptance going to be a similar level to how it was earlier, how it is here?
It's complicated because it is a college town, so
Yeah.
it's not so bad. And everyone is very friendly in Boone. There's
Okay.
a real feeling of like looking out for your neighbor and stuff. Like they were hit
Oh.
by the Hurricane
That's
Helene
right.
recently.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of my hometown seeing all this stuff about how they
Yeah.
really stuck together and helped each other out. And there were tons of donations.
Because people literally couldn't drive to your dad's office.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like for a while, I think people were without power for a long time, and the whole place was kind of shut down. But yeah, and there's a few little pockets of like queer things. I think they have like one bar that does like a drag night or something, but it's pretty sparse.
Support your local drag queens.
Yeah.
Joella.
Yeah. and so I think it would be tough. And then the legislation is such, I mean, now I guess it's kind of this equally bad everywhere, but
oh yeah,
North Carolina was not super ideal. Like when I was in high school, the thing was the trans like bathroom ban. Like that affected one of my friends.
That's terrible.
And the I guess that the federal level, the ban.
But like when this happens in high school, like you're just doing this to kids.
Yeah, so it's a little bit less. It's kind of like I could probably live there and be okay, but I'd have to be a little more like careful about what I say and kind of act stealth, either in like pretend to be, if not pretend to be a man, like pretend to be like, oh, they're just like that, and like not kind of show that I'm like dating somebody or something.
Oh,
and then
that would be awkward because Mia's excellent.
Yeah, and then for Mia, that might be untenable. Like, I think for trans femmes, it gets... I mean, I do know one person that I think still lives in Boone that is trans femme, but it would be tough.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, you're, like, tied down to the woman of your dreams, and she's probably never going to leave here anyway because she's a professional musician.
Yeah. And I love it here. I mean, sometimes, sometimes it's like I'm out there and I'm like, dang, I want to go home. And by home, I mean LA. So it's gotten to the point where LA feels like home to me.
That's so beautiful. That's good news for me personally, because I'm never leaving LA, and so you're stuck with me.
Yeah, I'm stuck with you and Mia and maybe Liz, I guess, and my church people.
Shout out to Liz. Good. And shout out to your church. What church do you go to again?
Lutheran Church of the Master. It's like on the corner of Westwood and Santa Monica. It's a cute little church.
Yeah.
Come check us out. We're very queer friendly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like the intersection between Christians and queer people is not often talked about, but your church is very accepting of.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's very like they definitely are. They value like diversity, and they actually mean it. Like they value community. It ends up being, because it's kind of so welcoming. It's an interesting mix of people. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a lot of like old gay dudes, and then like some Persian people and like some other random people. And so it's kind of a fun little place. But yeah, there's a few, obviously like the Christian nationalism thing that's going on right now is very whack, very not good. Yeah. But there are like a few little pockets of things that are good. And it's kind of funny, like some of my friends are getting religion and I'm like, what have I done to you? I remember when you were like a bad girl. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great, though, and I know you play on their band, so thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday morning to come hang out with us.
Oh, I've gone down to once every 2 weeks because I'm also on the council. It's one of those, it is a little, I mean, that's the thing about getting involved in your community is every way to get involved is if you give a mouse a cookie scenario, where they will take every second of your time if it were possible. So you have to set your limits somewhere.
Not like that. If you volunteer for the science fair, you're done after your 1 day of volunteering.
That is the nice thing about exploring your universe. Very clear, the boundaries. Yes. Very set. Very obvious how much work you're doing, and then it's over.
And then you go home.
Love that.
But anyway, you play the cello.
Yeah.
And recently you've been relearning the bass.
Yeah. So I guess I learned the bass in college. Just for fun, because my friends wanted to start a band that we called Hard Space Math. Okay. And there was like a friend of a friend who owned a bass, and I bought his bass. Okay. And no one knew how to play, and I was like, well, I want to learn. So I just like taught myself the bass, mostly freshman year of college, and then I guess I've kind of been less gung ho about it since then. But now that I've had 2 seconds to spare to try and practice a little bit, I've been getting back into it. And I also got an electric guitar recently that I want to try and learn a little more. I'm like very bad at the guitar, but I want to be functional at it.
That's fair. I feel like I'm not quite functional at it. I can play like a Taylor Swift song and that's it.
Well, that's pretty good.
Thank you.
That's all you need. That's fun.
But how long have you been playing the cello?
The cello is the longest one. So that I've been playing since 5th grade. And so I played that all through middle school and high school. I tried to play it in college in the orchestra, and that was just untenable because it was like, let's do Tchaikovsky's Fifth, let's do the Firebird Suite, let's do
And
all the
everybody just
hardest
knows it
songs
already.
ever written by man.
Yeah.
And, you know, in this class that is supposed to be like the lowest level, easiest orchestra. So
Sure.
it was just like too much work for trying to do all the other stuff I was trying to do. But
Shout out to those UMD kids.
shout
They
out to
were
those
kicking
UMD.
butt.
I honestly, it's like, where do these people come from? But anyway,
My high school.
yeah, it's like if Maryland is like if everyone on the debate team moved to the same place.
Yeah.
And like the DC area is like that.
Yeah. I did not move anywhere close to where the debate team kids from my high school went to.
Yeah, I would recommend against it.
Yeah.
But it anyway, so I love playing the cello.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss that orchestra feel, but playing at my church has been a great way to do like, you know, a little
What do
bit
you
smaller
play at
scale.
the church?
Just like hymns and stuff.
Oh, no, like what instrument do you play for them?
So I do like all kinds of stuff. I do the cello for some things. I do singing for some things. I do mandolin for some things. That's one thing is they've been teaching. I've been kind of just like ad hoc learning how to play or how to sing alto because I don't have any actual singing experience. Like I was never on a
I mean, you're very
choir or
good
whatever.
for somebody who's had no real singing experience.
Thanks. I try my best. It's gonna be tough now that I'm on testosterone to try and like relearn how to sing.
That
But-
is what I've been hearing.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, I don't know that it's changed that much yet, but we'll see where it ends up.
I feel like you're slightly deeper, but you're also not like cracking.
That's true. That's
My
nice.
brother's 17, so I recently heard his cracking phase, and you're not there.
Yeah, so we'll see.
But okay, so you also run our department's band.
Oh yeah,
You wanna
the
talk about
Christmas, the holiday band. Yeah, so that was done by Mark Hubbard, who did a very lovely job
And is
of
now
leading the
Dr.
holiday band.
Hubbard.
Now Dr. Hubbard, I guess. Yeah, and yeah. So every year we do like a holiday party before winter break, and we get together and make a little band, and we do like 4 or 5 practices, and then we sing some Christmas songs, and we should add like a Hanukkah song or something. But anyway, we sing some holiday
I could
songs.
sing a Hanukkah song. I used to date a Jewish guy.
I love the logic there.
Thank you.
But anyway,
Sorry, for context, I'm one of the singers for the band,
Yes.
and so this directly affects me.
yes, but yeah. So, you know, experimenting with trying to transcribe music. I'll do better next time.
You did great this year.
Yeah, so it's a fun little time. We just play some holiday music and have fun, and it takes me back to like orchestra and that kind of thing. So I think it's kind of a
Yeah.
fun musical experience that's unlike anything else that I get to do.
There's
at this
a
phase of
weird
life.
psychological brain tickling that happens when you play music with other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think even if you've never done music before, like go to a novice choir, just like sing in a group of people.
Yeah, anything. You know, it's really, and you'll be surprised too at like what different types of groups and different instruments bring
Yeah.
out these different vibes. Like,
Yeah.
I think the way I thought about music when I only played the cello was different. It was very like, I guess I gravitated towards the more like emo stuff because it was,
Sure.
cello is a very emo instrument. If you want to express like sadness or beauty,
Have you seen
It's
the
got
Wednesday
you.
show?
no.
Okay, she plays the cello in it.
Oh.
And then in the first episode, she plays Back to Black in this like beautiful cello cover. And a bunch
Huh.
of people who are younger than we are were like, wow, they wrote this song for this show. It's great.
That's cute.
No, the cello is very emo, but I'm assuming you were also just somewhat an emo teenager.
Well, yeah,
Because I
certainly.
was, and we have very
listened to
similar life stories.
21 Pilots and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that was sort of my experience until that's I think why I got way into bass
yeah.
all of a sudden in my freshman year of college because I was like, oh wow, this is an instrument where you can express like fun and silliness and
Oh.
anger
Yeah.
and like cool like masculinity. It was
Yeah.
or like just like funkiness. So there it's like opens up a whole new world of like possible emotional expressions through an instrument. So I highly recommend music to anyone as like a hobby. It's
Yeah.
great.
Also,
even if you're bad at it.
You taught me this phrase, but the Venn diagram between musicians and scientists is a circle.
Yeah, it's very like, especially, I think, especially astronomy and planetary science are kind of the artsiest of the sciences.
Yeah.
And so it kind of gets those like people that are, left-brained and right-brained or however you say it. I kind of think, yeah, that doing science and doing like artsy, musicy stuff in that way is honestly not so different.
No. We had Emmanuel on a few weeks ago, and he was like, he plays 16 or 17 instruments.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Well, having Emmanuel on the show was just super, super fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you wear a lot of hats other than being our band director. You have also been our union steward for several years.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So still figuring out what that means. I mean, basically, the basic level of it means if you have a problem with your advisor or you have a question about your pay or something like that, you can come to us. And if it is the type of situation where the best option ends up being filing a grievance, you've tried other things and they didn't resolve the issue, then we help you with that process. In practice, I actually haven't had to do that yet. With anyone.
Oh, they did it for me right before your term turned over.
Oh.
Because there was that one summer when the university forgot to pay me.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
So Saeed Mahana, if you're listening, thank you for filing my grievance. But that was like right before you took over.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So me and Saeed are holding it down. And it ends up being kind of as much or as little as you want it to be because there's other stuff that the union as a whole is doing. So like I got to be on... Oh, what was it called?
Oh
like
my gosh,
the
the
group
thing that you
of
missed
people...
my birthday for.
Yes. It was like a whole elected group of representatives that went and like 200 or some odd people from all over the state for our union that went and voted on what we want our priorities to be for the next bargaining round and what we want to try and get on the new contract. So like I did that. That's kind of an extra thing that you don't have to do. But
well, thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, it was kind of because we wanted to try and have at least one person from every department. Yeah. And our department is so small. Yeah. And Saeed's like, oh no, I don't have a car. So
Saeed doesn't have a car?
I don't know. Or something. Okay. I don't know. He just didn't want to do it. So
Okay.
And it ended up being me. But that was a very enlightening experience. I learned a lot about like how things work. That was very helpful to know. And there's lots of other little things. They have meetings that are monthly that I probably should go to, but I don't. So they're always working on something, right? They're always trying to look at the bigger picture of what is the next contract coming up? How do we prepare for that? How do we get people signed up and involved and stuff like that? And so there's those kinds of things to do. That's the other thing we actually do every year is the orientation for the new incoming grad students. We try and teach them about like, okay, here's what the union is, please sign up if you want to. But we also are trying to add other stuff about like, here's how your funding is supposed to work and here's the different types. And then here's how grad school works and here's the classes you're supposed to sign up for.
It's like shockingly confusing for anybody hoping to apply to PhD school. There's a lot of secret knowledge.
So we're kind of working on clarifying this knowledge that should not be secret.
It's less secret now. It was never supposed to be secret. It wasn't on purpose. It just sort of happens over time.
And especially with the academic-y side of that, I think we've got some people, some staff in the department that are on board and gung-ho about trying to get students more informed on that stuff. So I think we're not working alone on that part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can kind of be like many things in life, as much or little as you want it to be, but those are the main functions.
Okay. So you are a lot of things. Asteroid researcher, musician, union steward, band director, EYU volunteer, Megan's best friend and Labmate. What have you learned about yourself from these past 3.5 years of being a graduate student here? That's gosh. None of these literal things to learn. But I feel like you and I have been through so much personal growth together. What have you seen from yourself?
I guess I've learned that I'm capable of establishing my own adult life and routine, because I think college is a good start to that, where you're okay, I'm out of my parents' house, I'm living my own life, but everything's kind of chaotic. There's kind of not the time or the space to set up a real life for yourself because you're so busy trying to study for all these classes and do your homework, and you still have like the dining hall to make you food, and right up until you're making your own food, and your apartment looks like trash because you live with 3 boys or whatever. So it is kind of like that's sort of the training wheels. But then I feel like with grad school, I've kind of learned establishing what I want my adult life to look like and going out and actually making it happen. And so I'm kind of proud of myself for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that has kind of been the lesson of like the past few years of my life.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think like a lot of people sort of learn that in the workforce, and I think the difference in graduate school is you don't make any money.
Yeah, I mean, you make enough to get by. That's the other thing I've learned, is that I actually have kind of everything I need, even at this level. I kind of couldn't go much lower just because of how rent is, but
yes.
But it's actually possible to have a nice little, have my own nice little world and stuff.
Yeah, I think we've been doing great. Okay, so my last question that everybody's been asked is, imagine this. Like the small children at Exploring Your Universe, at some point you were that small child. What would you have wanted to hear from a volunteer like you or me?
I guess, well, the thing is, I'm me, so this is probably not reflective of what the average child wants to hear.
No, it's not the average child. Literally just you.
I guess I would have wanted like a whole breakdown of like, okay, this is exactly what we're doing in this experiment.
Okay.
Like with the pufferfish, I would have wanted to know, okay, this is the baking soda. This is what baking soda actually is in like the chemical formula, and this is the citric acid, and that's what this is. And then look at the little thing and be like, this is the gas that it makes.
Yeah.
So I would have wanted like a high level breakdown, or at least like something to say, yeah, basically that idea from earlier of like everything in the world is made out of chemicals. These are 2 particular chemicals that we use in baking because of what they do. And then when we put them together, it makes all this gas, and isn't that cool? So maybe
this is
just
really
like
funny. Sorry, because you're the only person who has answered this question like this. So do you want to guess some of our other answers?
I would think they'd be more like emotional, like they would want to hear that like everybody can do science and that like you can do it and that kind of thing.
But you as a kid were like, I'm ready to do the science. Please give me the science already.
Yeah, I like wanted to know why is this important and relevant, and how does it work? And how does it tie into how everything else works?
Yeah. Because I guess what I experienced as a teenager was like a lot of people acting like I couldn't do science because I was a woman. I don't know if you experienced anything similar.
Honestly, kind of not. Like, it's weird how a lot of like gender roles comes down to more of like how if you present femininely or masculinely.
Yeah.
So I feel like because I kind of came off as like a masculine person, and I never put that on myself. I was always just like, oh, the whole world is my oyster and I can do whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of just did whatever. I don't know.
I feel like this is the clearest evidence that gender is not a binary.
Yeah, it's kind of all made up.
Because every time I bring up these like, universal girl experiences, you're like, no, this never happened to me.
I mean, there's a few things, but yeah, there's a lot that I'm like, can't relate.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any final messages to our audience? How can they keep up with your research or your music or anything?
Go to emersonwhittaker.com. Akash Gupta mentioned earlier, helped me make that website. Or not slash. What is that? Like dash. Hyphen.
Okay.
That's the word. Hyphen.
And 1 H, 2 T's, 1 K?
WHITTAKER.
Okay, yes.
Anyway.
1 H, 2 T's, 1 K. I got it.
Yeah. And love y'all. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Come back next week at 10 a.m. when we hear from Brandon Lazard.
Yay.
And with that, never stop exploring.